Hello, and welcome to episode 110 of Design Curious Podcast. I'm your host and mentor, Rebecca Ward. Today on the podcast, I have a fabulous guest, Colleen Bennett. She is just a powerhouse and has such an interesting career path that you're going to want to listen in. Let me tell you a little bit more about her before we hear from her. Colleen Bennett founded her first interior design studio, Catechus Folium, in 2006. This Costa Rica-based firm quickly expanded into 6 design centers located in Ecuador, Colombia, Mexico, Nicaragua, and Honduras. Colleen designed most of the presidents' and dignitaries' homes in Central America and throughout the region. In 2012, Colleen moved back home to North Carolina and opened a U.S. division of the company, CBB Design Firm. Shortly after graduating from Wake Forest University, Colleen became the youngest furniture representative hired by Drexel Heritage. Traveling the world, she visited over 60 countries and designed thousands of vignettes of every style and budget for her clients. In 2009, Colleen was hired as the youngest account manager and visual merchandiser for Ralph Lauren Home, where she was responsible for all of their home stores in Africa, Australia, and Latin America. Colleen takes her international portfolio and brings the resort living to her designs in the North Carolina market. She specializes in residential and commercial design, as well as historic renovations. So, as you can see, really international, really interesting story. So let's get into it. You're now listening to Design Curious, a place where you, creative one, are here to learn about what it really is like to be an interior designer. And I'm your host and mentor, Rebecca Ward. If you're worried about how to succeed in a creative career, if you're ready to learn your next steps to become an interior designer, and if you want the satisfaction of doing something you love every day, you are in the right place. Grab a coffee, a notebook, and let's dig into today's episode. Hi, Colleen. Welcome to Design Curious Podcast. It's great to have you here today.
Hey, Rebecca, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, and I am really impressed by your bio, and I just think it sounds so exotic and interesting and how you got into interior design. So tell us how you initially got even into this type of career. Like, what sparked your interest?
Well, it was all accidental. I was supposed to be a lawyer. I went and got a triple major at Wake Forest in politics, history, and Spanish, and really was not considering doing interiors. I always loved it. But then, law school was just not appealing to me. And my resume ended up on the desk of someone at Drexel Heritage, which was a furniture company way back in the day. And how it happened was, I was 21 years old. I wanted to travel the world. I had wanted to be an international lawyer. Well, I got offered a job to be an international sales rep for furniture, which was like, okay, well, I have no understanding of this. So they sent me to a factory. They told me they would pay for my travel around the world. So I was like, okay, checkbox, let's do that. So I went to a factory, learned all about furniture, built my own piece. I still have the scars from literally putting 8-way hand tie on.
Wow.
Onto frames. I learned fabric. I learned finishes. I mean, they literally put me through the gauntlet. And I had to meet people at Furniture Market, which is the big High Point market where every vendor in the world would come without knowing them, without knowing their store. And I would have to design their entire store in 2 hours, given a quick floor plan. So that's how I also quickly learned how to do retail interiors, if that makes sense. Did that in 68 countries around the world, which was crazy. Yeah. So I had Russia, half the world, Southeast Asia, India, Singapore, Thailand, let's see here, Australia, New Zealand, all of Latin America, because I speak Spanish fluently. That helped. There's the one that helped out. Actually, the political science and the history helped out because I knew all the cultures. So I kind of knew the nuances. I knew their history. Okay. So I didn't come there green, which I think helped out.
Transferable skills.
And so it was funny. I ended up in Russia and my client was like, oh, Colleen, you are a designer today. I'm like, no. Ended up working on a program in the Kotelny-Sheshkayas. So the Kotelny-Sheshkayas are the Empire State Buildings that Stalin built in
Mm.
every single country that he overthrew. So right in the middle of Moscow, if you look at the red square, here's this huge mall called the Goom, and then there's this Empire State Building like tower right behind it. And so I worked on some projects there. It was kind of cool. And then I got this, hey, you may have won an award. I'm like, okay. And it was basically what ended up happening is because I did all of these things very fast, my stores would invite me to work with them with their clients. And so, I would end up like, I had a client in Guatemala who's like, please help me design this. You're very good. So we bought a castle from Scotland, bit by bit, into Guatemala, rebuilt it,
Oh,
did all
wow.
this crazy stuff. So after 2 years of doing that around the world, my boyfriend, now husband at the time, he had finished his master's and I wanted to go someplace where I could speak Spanish,
Hmm.
where I could use what I was doing, use my commercial interiors. And we went to Costa Rica. However, we picked to go to Costa Rica in 2006 when the stock market crashed
Yeah.
and everything went down.
Yeah.
So the people who had been selling my stores at Drexel Heritage went bankrupt. So Drexel Heritage was like, well, you need to make that money up. And I'm like, you do realize that like everything fell apart in the whole world. Like if you think the United States is bad, the US is, I mean, international is terrible.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I opened my first interior store when I was 23 years old with $6,000 and 150 grand in debt across from a chicken, a donkey, and a turkey, because that's all I could afford. And we had no inventory because we decided to compete against the US market because really anything in Latin America competes against Miami, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the markup in Latin America is times six. So if you got $1,000 sofa, they're going to sell it for six, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Well, US market is going to be, if it's $1,000, it's going to be three, right? That's
Yeah.
how you put the margins. So we sold it for three, landed and delivered. Actually, we sold it for 2.8, landed and delivered.
Oh,
So they were
wow.
getting a better price in the United States, landed and delivered in their home. So we were kind of like the Amazon, pre-Amazon
Okay. Yeah.
of people being like, hey, I'm not seeing it, but I'll buy it. And people kept telling me, like, no one's going to do that. Who would buy furniture without seeing it? Like, I kind of want to laugh and be like, look now.
Yeah. Everybody's doing it.
Right. So we had fabric samples. We did all that. Because I was already used to working with like retailers, I started focusing towards designers.
Hmm.
So not being the enemy, but being more of like a helper, like, hey, I have access to all of this product. Let me help you make your designs look amazing because I know how to do fabric to frame
Hmm.
and you get paid a commission. So we blew it out of the water.
Wow.
We did over 22 containers our first year.
Wow.
Furniture. It was kind of crazy. And, while you're doing that, we're helping with the architectural plans, we're doing the CAD, we're doing all of that. And then
Hmm.
3D was just starting back then. I mean,
Hmm.
look back at all the low polygon. I mean, it was really low polygon. We do a lot in 3D, but it was like so bad, but it looked like basic drawings. But
Yeah.
that's how it started. We started with putting people's homes into 3D. We had this notion. So that's kind of how I fell into interior design. And then I really started taking my own clients because my clients would be like, people would hear about me organically and then
Hmm.
kind of come. I just went about it that way. I didn't go to school for it, but I learned the school of hard knocks of
Right.
here's your CAD plan, here's your electrical, you probably need a power booster, this wall, where's the structural engineer, like all of that stuff. At that point in time, it was just, your portfolio that you grew,
Yeah.
which I actually think I prefer. I love kids that go to school, but it's like you got to be in front of a client, read their face and do all that stuff. So
Hmm.
I'm a weirdo in that sense.
That makes sense. Yeah.
But yeah, we're just finalizing our ASID, getting all of after 20 years, I finally be able to sit down and take the test, so I'll be good.
Oh.
But yeah, no, it's been a crazy, crazy ride. And then we expanded into Nicaragua, Honduras. Sorry, there's a background with my office. Ecuador, Colombia, and then back to the United States. While we were just selling all this product, we had Curry and Company, which is a lighting company, picked us up.
Hmm.
Visual Comfort we represent. We represented Arterior's home. We represented EJ Victor. And then we represented Ralph Lauren. When Ralph Lauren took us on, we became the account managers for all of Ralph Lauren Home for about 15 years for half the world. My husband did
Wow.
Asia and I did Latin America and he did Africa. So I got to go, and Australia. So I got to go work with like the Bloomingdale's of these cool countries.
Yeah.
That was my job. I got to go to Casa Palacio and set their huge store. They've got this 60,000 square foot store in Mexico City, which is incredible. Like
Wow.
stores we've never seen. Or David Jones, which is like the Bloomies of Australia. And there you are. You're setting the style of Australia for Ralph Lauren, but you have to make an Australian twist to it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or you'd have to make have a little Mexican flavor when we were doing it. So it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like we'd always joke and say, well, this is Ralph a la Mexico, or this was the Aussie Ralph. And it was cool. And then pandemic happened. I restarted my business in the middle again of a crisis.
Yeah, because there's not a lot of international travel during
No,
that.
no. And I was like, I don't want to get stuck in Australia. I mean, I had friends get stuck in Australia for over like almost a year on
Oh,
lockdown.
goodness.
It was crazy. Then again, I opened, lost, quit. I mean, Ralph Lauren, we parted ways during pandemic. They changed. So there I'm going, oh my God, I have a new career change. What am I going to do? I was taking clients on the side because I could.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went from 6 clients to 150 in like 3 years. It's been nuts. So that's kind of where I'm at. That's my little nutshell of
Yeah.
kind of got to where I am.
So were these all different businesses, or were you just shifting your main business into
They're
your design
vertical.
work?
Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yeah.
So like the rep work became then a logistics company because we had to get the product from point A to point B. So I had to learn containers, box size, cube size. Like I'd have to look at that sofa and be like, how are we packing that? How are we getting this in? But then it also helped you as an interior designer be like, that's not going to fit in that elevator shaft.
Yeah.
That's going to need a frame,
Yeah.
which
Oh,
we've done. So yeah, we became a logistics company. And
uh-huh.
then our other designers and other clients were like, well, how are you doing this? I'm like, well, we do it ourselves. So they hired us to do that. So as that happened, then we became a procurement company.
Mm.
So we buy from pretty much 900 different vendors. I mean, furniture, you name it, because of the different store locations of where we're at, and we give them good volume. It became easy then when you're working on projects to just be able to work with everybody. That business that was in Latin America was called Catechus Folium, which
Hmm.
means fallen leaf. That was the emblem of Drexel Heritage,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
which was, it was supposed to just be a shell corporation. And then it turned into Catechus Folium, which is a name no one can pronounce. And then it became stores in Latin America that had a brand of high-end luxury. And, when we were doing our interiors. So when we moved to Nicaragua, we became the interiors because there weren't any interior designers there.
Yeah, I was
So
going to ask about that because we kind of have an established interior design system that's grown, over the last 100 years here in America, but I don't know
sure.
about other countries being like that, especially in Latin America and
Oh,
stuff
I mean, like
like.
Brazil, Mexico, they have incredible interior designers.
Hmm.
Guatemala, Panama. Costa Rica has some really good ones. There's some great in Colombia. I mean, there's each country has it, but it's not like, it wasn't started by like Dorothy Draper and her and
Yeah, yeah,
taking all the methodologies that came after that and actually the science and having a license and graduating.
right.
There you can be kind of Debbie Deckarina and go for it.
Okay.
So you would walk into some places and go, okay. I didn't know that went together, but
It's a choice.
no, that's a great choice. Or so no, in Nicaragua it was a bunch of furniture stores. So our first one, we ended up doing the vice president's house. We've designed some president's house, some dictator's house, can't name, but
Yeah.
we've done, some good people, some people probably on the DEA most wanted,
Hmm.
but
Do you think that your law background helped you like negotiating contracts or
oh
understanding
yes.
international business law and things like that?
Sure, making sure your taxes are paid, making
Hmm.
sure you understand the margins, making sure you understand importation duties. I mean, I don't think Americans understand how expensive importation duties are. Like,
Mm.
Brazil, it's 100% duty on anything from out of the country, which is why their
Wow.
manufacturing business went through the roof.
Yeah.
So like our Ralph Lauren sofa that's sold at 4,000 in the United States would sell at $12,000 in
Wow.
Brazil.
Yeah, I've noticed Brazil has a lot coming out of that now.
Yeah.
A lot of
I
new
mean, they've got,
companies coming here.
oh
So
yeah,
yeah.
some very cool ones. What is it? Artefato, Casual Moves. He's a great guy down there. He has his own stores. He has his own furniture. Amazing. Some really cool, I actually think some amazing Brazilian furniture manufacturers. Just really sleek, very modern,
Mm-hmm.
like they're very cool for, California aesthetic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I've been liking
but
it.
we've always loved it for Latin America because it had all of that, feel. North Carolina, it's like,
Not moving as fast there.
but like there's some great Latin American companies like Adriana Hoyos, love her stuff. She's, that's all out of Ecuador. Very cool. And then Sig Bergamin. I mean, he is a fabulous architect and designer out of Brazil. Like,
Mm.
holy cow, like he's the maximalist. And we were actually going to have him design the store down there at one point in time. It was,
Oh.
when you're sitting with these kind of icons, I mean, there's a May Waristi out of Costa Rica. She's a dear friend, godmother to my kid. I mean, those are the type of relationships I've had being both a designer and a design trade,
Mm-hmm.
But I always just found it was interesting and I learned a lot from them. Like, hey, don't be afraid to like just mix random stuff and materials and it'll turn out fine.
Mm-hmm.
Like do some darks, do some blacks, do some reds, do some, funky, who knows?
Yeah.
So, but for me, I just don't have a style. I kind of listen to the client and
Yeah.
kind of go, okay, show me what you're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll pull from it. I always ask them to do Pinterest. I don't know if you do that.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Where you're like,
So
show me
useful. Yeah.
show me your psychology.
Yeah.
Like when they're like, I'm traditional, and then they show you this stuff, and you're like, that's really modern.
Yeah, we really need that image to like make sure we're speaking the same language, really. Like what you think is traditional is what I think is traditional.
Oh, I know. And now imagine doing that in a foreign language in a foreign
Mm.
country, and they're like, yeah, it's super modern. And you're looking at them going, huh, oh, okay. Yes, we're going to work on your modern and we're going to figure that out.
Yeah.
Whereas like Latin America modern is super Italian. I don't
Mm.
know. Like here modern is kind of like transitional, or at least I
Mm-hmm.
think transitional. I
Yeah.
don't know what you guys consider like super modern, but
Yeah. It's in the
like,
contemporary where it's like, almost more about house, like glass and steel, kind of like very clean and rectilinear.
oh yeah, like oh my gosh, which is the one we just did, like Cassini and all of those stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we used to do all of that in Latin America. Then again, I've got this Latin and this super modern, and I come to North Carolina and people are like, maybe in Charlotte, sure, and Raleigh, sure. But actually, you're going to be surprised. The whole look of like Tahoe is very popular here.
Oh, okay.
And that's been happening. But not all of our clients in North Carolina, our clients are all over the world. It's always interesting.
Yeah. So what are you focused most on now? I think we talked offline a little bit how you're getting into renderings and using that in your businesses. So yeah, what are you focusing on mostly now?
So our whole thing is like 3D
Mhm.
and taking finish to the 3D world. So what also ended up happening, and besides just furniture, is I ended up starting a kitchen and bath design firm. So we have kitchen
Okay.
and bath. We have became the Cambria dealers. We have Cosentino. We have 8 kitchen and bath lines. We have Dow Tile, Walker Zanger, all of that stuff, which we all get at wholesale. And then we have flooring because I was tired of running around. And then we ended up getting building supplies. So we do
Mm.
party board, and although I don't really like
Wow.
party
Yeah.
board is unsexy, but most used product.
Yeah.
I'll be saying that.
That's true.
Hardy board, looking at, so we have all of that. And then we sit with our client. We have their home in 3D in blank. And then we start applying the finishes. It really allows us to minimize time, once we've done that back work,
Hmm.
and allows the client to have a major say in what their house looks like because they can't visualize. I don't know
Yeah.
what clients, that's always my biggest complaint.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. Even if I, have some 3D renderings and I'm showing them what it's going to look like, okay, I get. But then once they see it, as it's being built and it's coming to fruition, they're like, oh, now I really get it. Like I couldn't really visualize it before. It's a gift that we have that we can really see things the way they're going to be. And it's just not what everybody has. It's hard to realize that. So,
Yeah, a room usually opens up in my mind. I don't know how yours works when you visualize, but it usually just opens up and I'm like, oh, this will work. But some people have that, some people don't. And so, the 3D for us is because we do it based off of CAD, because you can actually rotate it, because it's down to the inch.
yeah.
That helps with flaws and seeing how everything's going to work. That's a big one. Making sure it fits. Because, it's always lovely when your kitchen cabinet shows up and you're like, what's the return there?
Whoops.
Yeah. Or where's, because sometimes HVAC's not typically on the plans. That's my biggest nightmare. I'm trying to make sure HVAC happens on the plans. That's like, but we do the 3D, we do it in the low poly so we can do it. And then we make high poly or what looks like an actual photograph. And we always just show the high poly with the actual. And I mean, it's almost dead on. I mean, it's just incredible what you can do. So that's been our big thing. And then because we're already in 3D, we've had all these builders come to say, hey, we want to work with you.
That's
Whereas
great.
before you're chasing builders like you, or then your client's like, well, do you have a builder you work with? And I'm like, yeah, here's 5. And they exclusively work with me. Then I get all my finishes, all my stuff in there. My client's happy. My builder's already got the pricing. And it's like they can already know the price because I bet you run into this with clients when you're doing remodels. Every single time the budget goes. I mean, so we do it the back way. We do all the front end work.
Yeah.
And then the client, we're probably off by like 4 or 5%, which isn't bad.
That's not bad. Yeah. It's really good.
I mean, remodels, you go, well, I always tell them, you never know what you're getting into.
Yeah. You open the wall and who knows what's behind that. So,
or what inspector you're going to meet that day. So it's going
to be. Yeah. Wow. Well, that's great. So I know we have a lot of handles here on Instagram for people to find you at. So is that all the different kind of aspects of your businesses that you have, like the CBB design firm? So is that your kitchen and bath?
That's our 3D. That's our, working on our finishes, all that.
And then you've got Mimosa Home NC or Mimosa Home, right? So is that's your furniture? Yeah. Okay. And then is it Butte Couture?
Okay. So Butte Couture was another pandemic business. So the bags you see in the back there, I was throwing out my Ralph Lauren leathers. I was throwing out my perennials acrylic. I was throwing out things. I was going, oh my God, this is just not recycled. This is going to go in a landfill. What am I going to do with this? So we made them into custom made bags.
Wow.
And we sold 40 of them in a week.
Oh my goodness.
Another 60 in another week. And then we only had like 600 followers. We ended up on the desk of a Vanity Fair editor overseas and ended up in Vanity Fair and Condé Nast magazine.
Oh my goodness.
And it was kind of crazy because we upcycle and then because we have these solution dried acrylic bags that are bleach cleanable, we use them as liners. So it was great because we were throwing out the old seasons, using them for the bags. I would have these fabulous bags and I have a baby bottle in it and be like, oh, great. There went that Prada. Here goes. Or here's my Coach bag totally destroyed.
Sure.
And so the leathers that we had in the furniture industry are the same as Prada, the same as Celine. And so we made them at Coach prices and women went crazy for them. And so we give back 10% at the time to local women's charities in general, because I mean, at that time during pandemic, no one was giving. One of our main charities was called Options, which was for women in battered, domestic violence.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Rise in pandemic. They were seeing a huge uptick and not being able to take care of that. So we sold $60,000 worth of bags in 6 months. It was kind of cool.
That is really cool.
That's our other little, I mean, it's like, don't throw out the materials. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like do something with it. It was really
smart.
And the lady who did it for me bought herself a car.
Oh,
because we've sold that many bags, which made me super happy. She's like, living wage. She's like, I would never, because it's made in the United States.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
Wow, that's
amazing
great.
how it just kind of.
Yeah, paying it forward there. Well, you have such an interesting path into interior design, and I know you have so much experience and knowledge. And so, what would you share with someone who's interested in getting into the career?
Well, number one, you're going to be your client's psychologist. Just remember that. Like at the end of the day, I always tell my clients, I'm really going to get to know you. I'm going to get to know your home. You're going to need to be very patient with your clients. They're choosing you. You're in a world that's kind of like secondary. Do you know what I mean? Not everybody needs an interior designer. So when they come to you, they're coming for an expert, and always be on the forefront of technology, always on your credits, what you're learning. Make sure you go to like the markets and see the new stuff that's out there. I always find that like I try to go to Deco Off, I try to go to Maison Objet, try to go to Salon de Mobilier, I try to go to High Point, at least touch, so I can see what's happening, because it's super important to understand that. And I think also you're going to be understanding the language of space. It's really important to have spatial awareness. It's hard to be taught that. And I think it'll take time, takes patience, I think. And I always tell people the more kind you can be in this space, sometimes there's not a lot of kindness, I find. I don't know. We can be a bunch of divas.
Yeah, that's why I have kindness as one of my core values in my business, because we want to be kind to our clients, but we also require it of the people that we are working with. So our clients and our trades and everything, I think is just a vital part of business.
I mean, I'm sure you've had an abusive client. I've had an abusive client. It's kind of one of the worst experiences you can go through. I think it's very hard to come out of. And I think people need to know, like, if you ever go to like McDonald's or you see something abusive to somebody who's serving there, it's the same thing that's going to happen to you when it goes wrong.
Yeah. Any service industry.
Not everything comes perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's it. It's kindness, it's integrity, it's being able to pivot. You have to be able to pivot. You have to be able to pivot, because if you pivot in this industry or with your client, or when something comes wrong, or when the color or the dye lot shows up wrong, what are you going to do? And I always say it's your team, I mean, you got to have a good team. You got to have a great team. And you got to have a great team of people that can fix. Like, who's going to be your install fixer? Who's going to be your reupholsterer? Who's going to be your fixer of the legs when it comes in and it's damaged? Or who's going to hide that sin behind the kitchen cabinet?
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of our job is really troubleshooting and problem solving, because things just come up. Yeah. And so you have to yeah.
Where do you want this mantle? It's only been 8 months. And you're like, I drew that out and gave it to you, but okay.
Yeah.
Are you sure? How do you want the joints? I'm like, okay. Yeah, sure. This tight here, exactly like that. I mean, it's just, and it's constant. And then, with the amount of, once you up your client game, then it's, here's my question. How do you manage your time? How do you separate what I call church and state?
With business and personal life, kind of. Yeah. Actually, that's one of the reasons kind of why I went into business for myself, because I was wanting that flexibility, but it's something I've had to work on over the years of understanding the priorities in my life and allowing work to not be something that is perfect. You can't really find balance between work. You have to integrate them together. And so what I've worked on lately is like having the full focus planner. It allows me to see my personal and my work tasks and goals all together, and they kind of flow together really well. And that's how I've been able to get them to work together, because it is challenging, especially when you're running a business. It's on your mind all the time, but you want to be present with your family as well.
Yeah, I've been trying not to bring my work home. That's been my show up and be like, try to get into mom mode. Does that make sense? Like wife mode, where I'm like, I'm not thinking about the sofa.
Yeah, you have to turn that off
right now.
Yeah. And being able to delegate, like you said, is really important. And like just let go.
Yeah. I've got to work on getting a work phone. That's my new thing. Like actually not my actual personal cell phone.
Yeah, did that several years ago. I got a Google Voice line for my business. It
Okay.
doesn't even ring on my phone. Only my employee answers it. So I can check the voicemails and text messages and stuff like that, but I don't answer it from 9 to 5, and she doesn't either. And so that's kind of really helped a lot because I used to use my cell phone and just you're accessible all 100% of the time, and it just doesn't work.
No, because then you get that client that sends you a text message on July 4th. I know it's July 4th, but I just want to let you know, looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
love you too. I'll be there. I promise.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So that really helped having a separate line.
Okay, cool.
I would recommend that
Definitely
for
need
sure.
to do that for
Yeah.
sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, well, Colleen, it's been great speaking with you. Thank you so much for coming on. And I just love learning about all your travels. I'm really jealous of that. I think that's great just to be around the world, but also your businesses. So I'm definitely going to include all the links in the show notes so people can find you if they want to ask you any questions about what you do or what you provide. So thank you
Cool.
again.
Well, thank you for your time today.
Well,
luck with everything.
Thank
And
you.
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll talk soon. So I hope you enjoyed that whirlwind around the globe story of Colleen's path to what she's doing now. She has such an expansive hunger for learning how to do things and just a go-getter in the industry. Definitely someone to look up to and to check out a little bit more. You can get her contacts. She has a few different Instagram handles for all her different things. So you can find her at Colleen Bennett, at CBB Design Firm, at Butte Couture, at Mimosa Home NC, or Mimosa Home. So all of those handles on Instagram, you can find her, but I'm sure you can find links to them on her website, cbbdesignfirm.com. All right, so go ahead and check Colleen out. If you're looking to start your career in interior design and are a go-getter and want to go for the career yourself, then you'll want to check out My Design Mentor. That's my online mentoring platform that you can join, and we can get you started the right way. Links are in the show notes, along with other downloads and a quiz that you can take. So that's all I have for you this week, and until next week, stay creative. Thanks for listening. If you love this episode, please leave a rating and a review. This helps me reach other curious creatives like you. If you have a topic request or would like to contact me, simply head over to my website, rwarddesign.com, or email me at podcast@rwarddesign.com.